I'm Roxy, the youngest real estate company owner in Alabama, also mother of two adorable children. They are passed out right now, and I have an assistant over, so fingers crossed they will not be making an appearance. But, so I hear you want to buy a house in Huntsville, which is amazing news if you're relocating, if you're local, all the things. It's awesome. I personally relocated here from Pensacola, Florida, about 4 to 5 years ago. Time is weird. And I love it. So we've loved it. It's been super amazing and we love it for the kids. There's so much stuff to do. It's a fabulous place, especially for real estate because we have a lot of people moving here for work. So the appreciation is really, really good. And yeah, just a lot of great new people that you meet all the time. So let's get into some tips and tricks that I have for everybody that's looking at moving here and buying a house, even if you're already here. First tip and trick I want to show you is more so if you're getting a loan, which most people are, that is Mortgage News Daily. This is an amazing free resource. They also have an app you can get on your phone that will give you notifications. So to give you just a kind of head overview of what happens with rates and all that fun stuff, because I'm a bit of a nerd, well, let's get into it. So first thing that you want to know, interest rates change every single day. So while you do see stuff in the media about like, oh, interest rates went up or down, or oh, there's a big Fed meeting that's going to, it's going to change rates and it's going to affect the housing market. Be cautious to know they change every single day, except weekends, okay? Like working days, guys. Now, also to note on this, they are best friends. I'm talking about besties ride or die with the bonds market, which is separate from stocks, okay? Bonds is a government thing, stocks is a company thing. So they're best friends with the bonds market. And because they're best friends with the bonds market, they want to do everything their best friend is doing. So if the bonds market is doing really, really good, they're going to be doing really good. If the bonds market is not doing well, they may not be doing well. So that is the easiest way that I can explain it. And there is news articles, and if you click on here and you go to Mortgage Rate Watch, that is where you're going to see all of the big implications with mortgage rates. And this is important if you're ever looking at refinancing, but especially when you're looking at buying a house, because what you are going to have to deal with in rates and what you're going to have to pay and being educated on that can save you so much money because there are a lot of different lenders out there and different lenders have different rates. That's another misconception. So different lenders will pick different rates guessing on what is going to happen on a day to day. So they're like constantly watching, trying to guess and gauge where they're going to be at. And they also account for your debt to income ratio and all of that fun stuff and your credit score. So different lenders may be able to offer you different things based on their different programs and their different risk willingnesses. Okay. If you want to have a 50% debt to income ratio, some lenders will do that, some lenders will not. Okay. And you need to make sure that for you and your family, what you're comfortable with. But I would get at least 3 quotes. You can have one do a hard pull and you can have the other ones go off of that previous hard pull. So you don't all have to do a hard pull. And then you can compare, and a lot of times they'll actually match each other as well. Think of them more as contractors rather than just a one-stop shop. If you are going to your big bank, that may not be the best fit. Also, I would ask if they're a mortgage lender or if they're a mortgage broker. If they're a mortgage lender, they have to have in-house everything. If they're a mortgage broker, they can shop around for you, okay? And I'll show you some lenders as examples. So that is two things that you definitely want to note on that. And you also will be able to see, hey, what's happening? Because when you go under contract on a house, you're going to want to make sure your lender locks your interest rate. So if rates change and we bomb somebody, depending on when you're watching this video, that could be relevant. But rates could go up in relation to that just because of the general uncertainties. Okay. So if you went under contract 2 days before that happened and it was like end of February and we were 3 year lows right under 6%, but come now, March 16th, you're going on your loan and you're like, hey, my interest rate is now 6.5. What happened there? Okay. So you're going to want to make sure that your rate is locked and it can be locked when you're under contract. I don't believe they can lock it before you're under contract. Also, I am not a lender and I have no affiliation with any of these lenders that I'm going to send you. So make sure you check with a financial advisor. I'm just giving you personal advice. Okay. Okay. So also for Mortgage Rate Watch, again, they're going to put out articles that are going to let you know, one, what just happened, like that number's different, and two, what is going to happen. So, oh, hey, this big thing is being released. 9 times out of 10, it has to do with the job market or has to do with unemployment rates. Those are really big to the bonds market, okay? And they come out all the time. And then you can also click and see where we're at. You can also see down here what they were at on every single day, which I can really get into the weeds on if you're curious. But this is going to be your 30-year fixed conventional loan. This is nationally. Again, you are going to have a specific rate to you depending on your debt to income ratio and your credit score. But this will give you an idea of where around we're at. And then FHA and VA. Okay. Keep in mind, this is a great free resource. It will also notify you every single day. Rates went up, rates went down. And if you're looking to buy a house, that makes a difference. So just note those things. Also, Palm Agent One. This is another free resource to you. Highly recommend. It is an amazing closing cost calculator. They also have a billion other calculators. So if you want to look at, if you're like a seller and you want to look at holding costs, seller rent, you can also look at a buy down calculator if you're a buyer. So buying your rate down, how that's going to affect your payments, how that's going to affect everything, blah, blah, blah. They have like a bazillion different calculators on here, okay? But you can also go on here as a buyer, put your address in, what kind of loan you're going to get, all of this kind of stuff. Your buyer broker fee is normally going to be covered by your seller because you're normally going to ask for that on your offer. So normally for that, I would put it at 0. Again, I am not implying that there is any set rate for commissions. This is not, we're not even getting into that. I'm not even talking about that. You guys are not going to catch me breaking any of those rules, okay? Everything's negotiable. This is just something that I note 9 times out of 10 for me. My clients aren't paying anything personally for me. I would not make my clients pay stuff. If that came to it, just give me a referral, okay? You got enough stuff you're paying for on the buy side. And you can put your closing date in there, HOA, all that kind of stuff. And this should give you a very close concept of what your closing cost is going to be, as well as down payment. Okay, you can put all that stuff in there. So, very, very helpful. Also, your lender should give you a breakdown as well. They are legally required to. Make sure you get that. And also, throw that thing into ChatGPT or Claude and see if it catches any red flags, okay? Because a lot of lenders can quote you very low interest rates. If their interest rates seem too good to be true after looking at where they're currently at, that's a red flag because they can always come back to you and say, oh, well, rates actually changed since I gave you that quote previously. Now you're looking at this. Okay. So you don't want to get in that situation. So that's another reason Mortgage News Daily is great. Anyways, North Alabama Mortgage is amazing, and I personally used Elizabeth Butler a lot of the time. She's really great. She actually shows up to closing 9 times out of 10, which for a lender, that is rare. But they're a great little company, and they are mortgage brokers, so normally they're really competitive. Also, Logan Hoffman, he's pretty good, and normally his team's not too bad either. And they're with like Stockton Mortgage and that kind of thing, and they can normally get you a pretty good rate too. But those are just two that I know of and I've used previously. Like I said, I'd get around 3 kind of quotes, see where you're at and all that stuff. But yeah, so let's get into the home buying goodies. Okay, now you know tips and tricks. Let's get into what does it actually look like? How much is it going to cost me? Okay, okay. So this is my buying packet. Happy to send it to you. It's free, but I'll skip through all this mumbo jumbo and come to the first thing that you're going to want to know. So this kind of goes back to your lenders, guys. There's pre-qualified and there's pre-approved. These are two very different things. And when you are first getting one, they sound very similar. So you could get one, run with it all the way up into putting a contract in on a house and not realize, and then go under contract and then have some crazy stuff happen when you realize, like, oh crap, they never actually pulled my credit. This was 100% a guess. It would be odd that the agents wouldn't catch it, but just letting you know so you're aware. Okay, so your pre-approval, the lender will pull your credit and ask you for documentation. If they do not pull your credit or ask you for documentation, they're giving you a pre-qualified, okay? They're saying if everything you told us is absolutely 100% true, you should be around this number. No, no, no. We don't want that. We want fact. We want this is what it is going to be. That is a pre-approval. That is what you want. Also, a seller is going to want a pre-approval, not a pre-qualified for those reasons. But just so you know. And then mortgage guide. Okay, so there is a couple different ways of loans. There's a couple different kinds. Think of them as dogs and dog breeds. Okay, so it's all still a dog, but there's lots of different kinds of dogs. right? So you have your conventional loan. This is your most common loan, okay? This is your run-of-the-mill, everybody and their mother can come in conventional loan, right? Now, the thing on conventional loan, you're going to be around 20% down, okay? Depending on where you're at on that, 15 to 30 years, pretty much on all of these loans. Okay, on down payments under 20%, you're going to need mortgage insurance. You can pay your mortgage insurance up front in one lump sum payment as well, and normally that is lower than 20%. If that is something you're interested in, also note your mortgage insurance is a lot lower than what it was probably when your parents bought a house. So if they're telling you 20% down for that reason, make sure you look at your break-even cost of, okay, if I put this much down now, how many years do I have to live in this house for that to make sense on my payment? Because a lot of times, if it's your first house or something, I mean, you might be in there for 5 years. A lot of times it's probably going to be 2 or 3. So something to note as well, and you're going to want around a 620 credit score for the low end. Okay. Then you have FHA loans. So these are high debt to income ratio loans, and they are backed for more lower credit scores and they're backed by the government. Okay. So it does have a PMI that is on for the life loan. You cannot remove it. You can start in an FHA loan and refinance into a conventional loan once you have 20% equity, because even in a conventional loan, when your house is worth 20% more, you can have that removed. So if you move into your house and it just appreciates in 2 years over that 20% equity, you can have them remove it. You don't actually have to pay that 20% out of pocket. That's something that people will miss a lot of the time. So an FHA loan is not like that though. You would have to refinance into a conventional, which a lot of people do that. So talk to your lender about it. Excuse me. And normally it's mortgage insurances, like 160 something ish dollars. It really depends on you and what your loan cost is. But that is something to, and it's about 3.5% to 20% down. A lot of times, too, with FHA, they can have secondary mortgage programs that will cover your down payment as well. So you don't have to bring down payment to the table. One thing I will note with that is you do want to be careful what the interest rate on that is. You also want to be careful what the repayment terms are for that. And if you sell the house in under X amount of years, are you going to be responsible for paying all of that back? Is there going to be any penalties or fines? Because sometimes, especially if it's through the government, they do have requirements on how long you have to live there. So that's one thing I would note. And then VA loans, this is going to be veterans, veteran spouses, and all of those people. Okay, so if you're not a veteran, probably not going to apply to you. If you are a veteran, thank you so much for your service. You will get a better interest rate. So that's just something to note. And it is about a 640 credit score is kind of where you want to be around on that. And it's 15 to 30 years again, and you won't have the PMI insurance. Also, something to note for a VA loan, a lot of times you will not be able to pay for your termite inspection. So when you do put in a contract, have the seller pay for the termite inspection. It's like $100, but it may come up. And then USDA, this is like a rural farm area loan, and it's backed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It is nearly impossible to get a USDA loan. It sounds amazing if you Google it and look into it. You're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so awesome. Thing a lot of people don't realize is there's income requirements. Okay. So if you make over X amount of money, you cannot qualify for a USDA loan. And that they total everyone in the household. So like anyone that's going to live in the house, they add to that one block of income. Okay. So it is kind of hard to be approved unless you're looking at like a shed, because if it's out in the country, it's still decently expensive around Huntsville. So for you to even be qualified for that mortgage, you're going to make a lot of the times more than that income requirement. It's not impossible, but I just would not put all of my eggs in that basket unless you're like really confident. So that's just the one thing I would note on a USDA loan. Are there other loans? Yes, there are other loans, especially if you're looking at a secondary home, if you're looking at a vacation home, if you're looking at a rental, like a DSCR loan, or if you're looking at something that's like on over 5 acres that you're not going to live in personally, that you may potentially do some agricultural work in. There are other things out there like that, but for your main residential that you're going to be living in the house, these are going to be the loans you're going to want to look at. Next. Oh, also, FHA you can use on a multifamily. So, I mean, granted, there is requirements. It can't be like a 17, unit apartment, but house hacking, people do that. You can do it conventional in VA too, where you buy multiple units and then you rent those out to other people, but you don't have to put 20% down like an investment property because you're living there. So that's something you can look into as well. Although, granted, the multifamilies in Huntsville are not normally amazing and they're normally very expensive. So It doesn't exactly work as amazing in our area, sadly. And then just some questions that you can ask the lender. So just different loans, what kind of rates, all of that kind of deal. I would also, I'm a big ChatGPT fan, have it make you a big list that you can email them and have them ask. And then I do have some trusted people on here as well and different loan application checklists. So you are going to want your last 2 years of tax returns. They're most likely going to ask for W-2s, they're going to ask for pay stubs, and they're going to ask for any additional like income that you have coming in that's personal. They're also going to want bank statements, 401k, and other asset statements. They just want to make sure, hey, what's all the money that you have coming in and where all is it? They're also going to want your driver's license, address from the last 2 to 5 years, student loan statements, and documents relating to anything applicable, like if there's a bankruptcy, if there's a collection, if there's a divorce, all that kind of stuff. Well, which I can get into, but that would make this video a lot longer. So if you do have any specific questions, let me know. And if you're missing something on this list, don't worry, you can still qualify. Also, if one lender tells you you are not pre-approved, you can still be approved by somebody else. That doesn't necessarily mean you cannot buy a house. In certain situations, you cannot buy a house. Okay, like you won't be approved through anybody, but they all have their different levels of risk that they're willing to do. And then that's just house hunting tips, all the things, keep an open mind, pictures, blah, blah, blah. Okay, writing a winning offer. First of all, it is all about communication, first and foremost. You don't really know the best way to negotiate this dream house you have found unless you know what is happening with the sellers. So, 100%, number one, have your real estate agent call the listing agent and find out what their situation is and what matters most to them. Do they want a longer closing? Do they want a faster closing? Are their kids in school? Are they waiting for school to get out? Is there a specific furniture they do not want to move out of that house? Is there something that they absolutely have to take with them? It, can the fridge stay? Can the washer and dryer stay? Okay, like, all as far as the roof and the HVAC, how do they know about all of that stuff? How does all that stuff look? Are they extremely nervous about an inspection just because they're anxious people, or is there something wrong with the house? Just so many questions that will give you a better path forward outside of just price that you can find out through a phone call. So that is first and foremost. But also, outside of the conversation, you're going to want to know what is the market saying about this house. So like for my buyers, I'll always do kind of a video similar to this where I will actually show them the MLS. We'll go through the house. We'll say, hey, this is kind of what it looks like it should be priced at. Is it priced at that? And then I can actually look at how many agents have clicked it, how many clients have clicked it, has it had a lot of showings, because a listing agent can tell me it's the most popular house on that neighborhood. But then if I pull it up and I'm looking at the actual numbers and it's had 10 agents click on it, it's probably not that popular. Okay. So that'll just give us like, okay, insight knowledge, what's going on. We'll also go back through what's happening in interest rates because that affects every buyer on the market. And we can look at, is this a buyer's market? Is this a seller's market? Kind of what's going on there, all that stuff. Also, cash versus loan. Is there a big difference in negotiations on those? Not really, unless the seller wants to close immediately because cash can close faster than a loan. At the end of the day, the money is green, they get the same thing. Okay. And 9 times out of 10, they're both going to have inspections. So the whole like cash is better than a loan thing really only matters if the seller is terrified about an appraisal or they want a very fast closing. And so that's the main benefits that you can do on that because cash you can close 7 to 14 days. A loan you're going to need 30, at least in Huntsville. Also, larger down payment. Does that matter to a seller? Your down payment, not so much. Your earnest money, yes, because that they feel like directly affects them. Think of your earnest money as a engagement ring, okay, guys? Because it comes off of your money at the end of the day when you close on the house. So it doesn't actually go to the seller unless you cheat on the seller and you go house shopping while you're under contract and you fall in love with a different property and you have to cancel this contract for no reason other than you like that property more now. They get to keep that money as like, sorry, bud, that kind of deal. Because you get it back if, and in the inspection period, you change your mind because they find anything. A lot of times you get it for appraisals if it doesn't appraise, although granted, earnest money is a tricky subject, so it is going to be very offer specific. But nine times out of 10, a larger amount of that will show that, hey, I am super serious about this because I am not going to just risk losing this money, if that makes sense. And normally it is around 1% of the purchase price. That's just like a general norm that you'll see people request a lot of the times. Unless the property is under like 300,000 and then like $1,000 is pretty normal. That's something to note. You can also offer for half of it to be non-refundable. A lot of times I'll do that if you have to sell a house to buy it. We'll do it non-refundable if like their house doesn't close and to avoid like a first right of refusal situation. But if you don't have to worry about that, I won't get into the weeds on that, but that can be helpful too. You can also offer a shorter closing timeline. So if your lender can close in 20 days because you're just like a super easy person to lend money to, you don't have like 17,000 things and you're making a lot of money and you don't even want to go top of your budget, that could be something that'd be cool. You could offer that if they do want a faster timeline, or even offering a longer timeline if they're like, we actually don't know where we want to move yet and we don't have anything lined up, which is really common right now because people don't know how long it's going to take for their house to sell. So they wait to start looking until they go under contract. So again, having that conversation, and offer shorter timelines on like inspections and that kind of thing. So instead of like 15 days, you can do like 7 or 10. I would preface with the inspector before sending the offer, hey, can you make it in this timeline? And then you can actually put on the offer, the inspection will happen at this day at this time. After you talk to the inspector guy and you're like, okay, put this date on hold for me. And then it makes you look super serious. You can also note that your inspection is for informational purposes only unless repairs total over like $1,500 or something like that. Because then it just shows that you're not going to be super nitpicky. But if you do want to be super nitpicky, please do not put that on the contract because that is going to make it very difficult to be nitpicky. Anyways, those are all of my little things there. Okay. Once your offer gets accepted and they're like, let's do this. Next steps, your earnest money, so your little engagement ring. Once everybody signs everything, you have about like 2 days that you're going to have that go to the title company or whoever is holding it. My company personally does not hold earnest money. I don't want to touch your money. I don't want to touch anybody's money. That freaks me out. Put it in a third party, put it in a title company. They foresee it and then they put it where it needs to go. So that's going to be your first step. A lot of times you can drop off a check, a money order, cashier's check, all those things, or you can send a wire, which is probably easier for most people. And then you're going to set up your home inspection. Your real estate agent can set that up for you. A lot of times I'll set that up with just people. Again, I do not get anything from anyone I recommend. Okay. I get no kickbacks at all. I'm just happy to help. So, and if you would like me to, I can. You're going to want to schedule your home inspection. Your home inspection is going to cost you around like $300 to like $600, depending on how big the house is for just a general home inspection. Your termite inspection and also wood destroying organisms, so they do also look at wood rot, is going to be required for FHA and VA as well. You have to get it. For conventional, you don't have to. But a termite inspection is going to cost you 80 to like 150, depending on what company you use around here. And it can be paid at closing. The seller can pay it, the buyer can pay it. Going to have to be something, if you want the seller to pay it, you have to put that in the contract though. They're not just going to volunteer to pay that. So that's another thing you're going to have to pay inspection wise. And then also inspections are optional, but I would 100% get them. I would not buy a house without an inspection. Like, please don't do that. And then the other thing that you a lot of times will get around here is we have septic tanks. I recommend a septic inspection, and that's going to run you around $300 to $800 depending on what kind of septic it is, if the seller knows where it is, if they have to dig it up, and all that fun stuff. Although, fun fact, to do a septic inspection, they have to actually pump the septic system. So a lot of times you can negotiate with the seller to pay half of that because they're pumping their septic system. So like even if you don't want to buy the house after the inspections, their septic system is pumped. So like it benefits them. So those are the like main inspections. Also, a radon gas is another one that's pretty popular, and that one's about like $90 to $100. And normally your general home inspector will also do that. It does take 48 hours though, so they'll have to come back out to the house. But it's just a gas that's naturally occurring in Huntsville area, and it has been linked to cancer. So you just don't want like a super high reading of radon in your house, or you can get a radon mitigation system installed. So yeah, those are your main ones. You can also have HVAC companies, roofers, electricians, and plumbers. Normally they'll come out just to like check everything too. Some of them have service fees, some of them don't, but that's another thing that you can have done. Renegotiate if necessary. So after you get your home inspections, you can send a request for repairs and then say, hey, based off these findings, this is kind of what we want. You can ask for a credit just to like do it all yourself and cover it. Or you can ask for just, hey, have someone licensed to get this done. And then a lot of times I'll attach quotes too, like if we already have quotes done, just so it's like, this is our proof kind of thing. But or you just say, yeah, I'm good. I'm cool with that. Let's move forward. Or you say, give me my earnest money back. This house is falling down. No, thank you. So that's that. You're also going to complete your mortgage application in the background. The sooner they get all their documents, the sooner you will be clear to close. So please be fast with that. And then you'll order your appraisal about 2 weeks before closing. Sometimes you can not need an appraisal depending on your borrowing strength and the price of the house. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that. I'm not a lender, but sometimes you don't have to get one. But if you do need an appraisal, that's going to run you about $600 to $800, and that can be paid at closing sometimes, but a lot of times lenders will want you to pay that up front. So that's normally halfway through the contract that you'll be responsible for those fees. I would tell your lender to wait to order the appraisal until after you thumbs up inspections and requests for repairs. Because if you do not come to an agreement and your request for repairs and end up walking from the house, why do you want to pay for their appraisal? You know what I mean? Like you have plenty of time to still get that done. So just wait to order that until that is done. And then you can move forward with the appraisal. Okay, what not to do. So this, again, you're going to want to talk to your lender before doing any of these things, not saying it will mess up your loan, but it can throw off your numbers. So buy or lease a car. Sell a car that you currently have on a payment plan. Selling anything that's currently on a payment plan. You might think it's going to help, but it could ding you. So that's something you're just going to want to proof with them. Changing jobs, missing any bill payments, opening any lines of credit or closing any lines of credit, moving large sums of money around accounts, making any major purchases, or withdrawing or depositing any large amounts of money. Virtually anything that could go, what's that? Because it's going to be passed to an underwriter who's going to look through it like tooth and comb, and they're going to be like, I wonder all these things. So just check with your lender before you do those things. And then before closing, so you are going to want to get home insurance. Your home insurance is not going to be done through a lender and it's going to be done through me. I'm happy to send you over some recommendations. I would get a few quotes on that as well. That is 9 times out of 10 going to be escrowed into your loan. So you also want to account for that when they're giving you those monthly payment ideas. You're going to have property taxes and insurance factored in with that. So not just principal and interest for your monthly payments. So definitely check that out. Also, FEMA, the FEMA map, make sure the house you like is not in a flood zone because that will jack up your insurance. If you don't want flood insurance. Granted, if you're getting a good deal and you want to be by the water, then maybe you're fine with flood insurance. But your real estate agent should also check that for you. But just so you know, more power to you. Closing disclosure, you're going to get all of that stuff done within the last couple days. And then in Alabama, we do actually have a final walkthrough. So around 24 hours before closing, after the seller is out of the house, we go into the house and we make sure that their crap moving company didn't bust holes in any drywall, or their little kids didn't crayon any walls, or that their beautiful rugs they had everywhere didn't cover up major stains on the floor or carpets. So that's kind of what we do. Or like a neighbor kid didn't spray paint a fence, or someone didn't hit the house, or lightning didn't strike a tree. We just go through and make sure this is still the same house you think you're buying. And then we go to closing. Make sure you bring your IDs, make sure you have your homeowner insurance. They'll tell you exactly how much money you need to bring or to wire. I do have trusted vendors and stuff on here. Again, if we find anything on inspections, I can help you get all those quotes and all that stuff. That's pretty much the buying process. And I will say, like timeline to find a house. If you don't have an insane tight list, normally 30 to 60 days is like plenty of time. Like I'm super efficient. So you really don't need to set aside like a massive block of time to find something. Normally 30 to 60 days, you'll be pretty good. And then I also do have other ones. I do have a Huntsville community guide if you just want to like look through any random things like that to get a better idea of like, oh, well, what area do I want to be in? I also have a horse guide if you are into the equine stuff and want to know anything about that. And I also have a chicken guide if you want backyard chickens because Huntsville and Athens, those areas have very different regulations for chickens and different things like that. So if that's something you want to look at, I can send that to you as well. But yeah, hopefully that was super helpful. And yeah, if you have any questions or you need anything from me, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help any way I can. And yeah, sounds good. I'll talk to you later. Bye.